athletes? Like, is it like, haha, now I am right, so give me your, I don't want more, like, no, I can't handle that many athletes. I mean, you can keep them. So I don't really know why and that's why I get frustrated with our strength and conditioning, because our discourse becomes combative. And I think it centers around the fact we don't have the ability to acutely say, based on today, that program was the best one. And so we're constantly trying to justify our program because we don't understand the time course of, how to actually look at that and think about it and consider it. So our next best is to build the wall and get the spear and fight off everyone who might try and come tell us our program's wrong. And that's what you see commonly, like, in the discourse of stuff. And even as as someone going through schooling, like, that's how you're taught. Don't question why you back squat. How dare you? You're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, okay, don't stab me with the spear. Like, that's kind of a rant. I don't want to go off on that topic, but that's where I kind of stand with some of the schooling stuff, and how I get involved with things is I like to try new things. I didn't even answer your question at all. I kind of just went rambling. And I think it's fun to try new things. And, like, you're doing a new thing here, and it's probably a lot more fun. It's cool. It's exciting, and you get to challenge yourself, and you get to talk to people, and you get to build things. And as humans, we like to build things, and I like to build different things. And, it's kind of like building stuff. And life's short, and one day will end, so let's try and do cool stuff.
No, 100%. And, if you could give, you have a platform here now, but what would be your piece of advice that you'd continue to give to coaches that are in it now? Like, hey, okay, you're out of it, you're detached, point of view, whatever. What's your piece of advice to how to make the field better?
Oh, I've gotten some arguments with that. I don't think there's kind of, two steps to that. How would I push the field forward is a great question. I think we got to evaluate why the field hasn't been pushed forward in 20 years.
Ooh.
And we have some stuff, but the field has been measured better. The granularity of information is better. But we still harpen back on older books and older texts and older knowledge as concrete foundations for what we're trying to accomplish. And so there are some arguments I would, like, from the NSCA for the journals. It'd be nice to have a little more continuity in research. In terms of, you can pick up a research book, or I read them every month. They come in, and it's just like a series of 30 research papers. And you're like, this is great, but, like, where'd that come from? Like,
yeah.
Can I get, like, a subtext? Like, what was the one that this came from, so I can follow a thread so we can build evidence? Because right now the burden of evidence accumulation is upon the reader. And if I have to read constantly these new articles coming out and then aggregate the evidence and have to then assume I missed some evidence and then come to a decision, it's just a lot of work for very little yield that might be like I do 4 versus 3 reps. And so there's not much of an incentive for that push because the burden of information consumption is so difficult, especially if you're trying to read research papers. As a group of practitioners trying to push the field forward, I think our ways of thinking should be evaluated. I think we need to talk about how we think about evidence. It's in percent confidence you speak with. You never speak in absoluteness. And not everything is 100. Nothing will be 100%. So it's always probabilistic in nature, and there's probability within it. And understanding, like, percent weighted variables and percent explanation can help resolve a lot of the general infighting. One of the things, if you think about, like, a young athlete and lifting weights and someone who lifts weights and they get stronger and they run faster, very simple example, people would say, oh, well, getting strong is the reason why they ran fast. Well, when you're so weak, the percent explanation of strength is probably higher than anything else, because if they're by default they're weak and we've defined that, then stronger is defined as a rate limiting factor, and it probably has some 40% explained variance in the outcome of performance. But as they get stronger, that maybe only becomes 15%. And so if your objective view is constantly with a youth demographic and they're getting stronger and faster, you're going to have this chronic biasing of saying strength is going to make us faster. And that could be fact. There's a difference between fact and reason. So, and that's a huge debate we have. You have, say, is it factual? Squatting and getting their legs stronger made them faster? Yeah, that's a fact. What's the reason why? Oh, the reason is they had lower extremity weaknesses, and the squat was used to help, mitigate or strengthen those areas, and so therefore they are now faster. So that's a reason. because then that reasoning can be applied across domains. So then it's not the squat, it's lower limb weakness. And you can very much translate that then to a trap bar, a back squat, a Bulgarian, and now you can start to explain why all these different exercises have the same relative explained variance in a youth demographic to have increase in speed and performance. So then you start to then have that conversation where you now can say, okay, someone, like a research paper comes out, this is like the research topic, I'm going to take a little sidestep, and they say this happens, and people will grab that research paper and they say, well, look, Max, someone pushed a sled and they ran faster, therefore we should only push sleds. Again, that's a fact, not a reason. The reason is a sled may have worked on certain muscle groups which are in a horizontal vector, and in the reasoning of that could even go more micro in terms of muscle synchrony, soft tissue development, and all this other stuff. And if we can understand the base layer, then you can understand why baking soda is used in cakes and cupcakes. Like, it's not just like only in cakes. And you're constantly this obsessive macro view. We don't understand that. Yes, it's a fact. Baking soda isn't a cake. It's also a fact it's in a cupcake. So, cool, it's a fact, but the reason it's used there, if I'm not mistaken, it's acidity, or it's baking powder. The rise of it. Maybe baking soda is the rise, whatever. You get the idea. It has a functional reason to it. And I think we should focus more on reasons. But that enters a very nebulous realm of conversation because there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know fascia that well. We like to say it, but we don't know it. We like to say things like muscle synchrony. You can't really measure it that well. We like to say things like elasticity, which is a great general catch-all term that really means nothing as well. And so we have a lot of difficulty with conversation just due to the inefficiencies of our ability to understand the macro level, and also our inefficiencies in communication, what you mean by elasticity versus what I mean, because the colloquial definition of elasticity might be different than the actual scientific, technical definition in terms of like Hooke's law or something, whether that's stiffness or whatever the elasticity law is. And so you have all these layers of uncomfortableness. But then we can just argue if you should squat or not. Like, it's like, oh, well, I don't know, let's just get our pitchforks back out, I guess, and just defend our programs.
Well, I mean, getting back to what you talked about before, where it's like, you know, you have this, you do all that work, like you said, to figure out if it's just 3 reps or 4 reps, right? And you talked about how it's difficult to measure certain things. Do you think that that is the inherent reasoning as to why there's limitations in the research? Because in order to actually measure things, it's way more difficult than we're willing to admit.
I think that's part of it. And you can never get mad at research. You can only get mad at the interpreter.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.